Hi, everybody. Welcome to Designated Driver. We're on our 7th episode now, and today we have a special guest, Vic Gamoff from StarTree and from the Pinot Project. And let's start off by doing a little intro about what our projects are, just very briefly, for those that are visiting from our respective communities. I wanted to introduce Apache Superset very briefly, which is an open source business intelligence tool, which you can check out. It's got a million charts and graphs and connects to basically anything SQL speaking, including Pinot, of course. And then if you don't want to try deploying and securing and upgrading the open source version, you can get it for free for up to 5 users forever on preset. So give it a spin. And then I'm not going to speak for Pinot, so I'll go ahead and hand it over to Vic to give a little one-liner about your project.
Hey, Evan. Hey, Beto. Yes, my name is Vic Gamoff. I work at the company StarTree. I'm leading some developer advocacy efforts here. And one of the big projects that we support and contribute to is called Apache Pinot. It's a real-time all-up database and naturally speaks SQL. So Apache Pinot and Apache Superset, that can make a very good combo whenever you need to run, I don't know, thousands of queries and have a very interactive UI to see what is going on with your data.
Fantastic.
And then, I can do a quick intro. I'm Beto. I work at Preset also. I've been working with Superset for 7 years now. And I'm a software engineer. And actually, I'm curious about this episode. I'm really interested because I actually started the Superset Pinot connector, like the DB API and the SQL Alchemy dialect. I wrote the first proof of concept back in 2017.
Nice.
That was my main exposure to Pinot. It had just started to support SQL back then. It was still kind of in the beginning. That's why I'm excited about this episode.
Okay, very cool. And yeah, I guess I usually do the personal introductions before the project introductions, but usually we also introduce a beverage since this is kind of a happy hour podcast sort of thing. And since we're talking to someone that works with the Pinot Project, I found an appropriate beverage for this episode called the Pinot Project.
Yes, this is awesome. Many of my friends, they consider myself like a boring person, and I'm missing a lot of opportunity to talk about wine while I'm doing the Pinot stuff, because I usually don't consume alcohol, but I consume some other stuff. Today I am in a protein shake game, so Joko Drinks can be sponsoring over this podcast. They do some protein shakes and some cool how it's called, isotonics, when you need to kind of get your nutrition back in check with these. Nice. Today is a protein shake. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, and I also have a Pinot Noir. This
Sweet.
Is a Robert Mondavi. This is my mom's favorite wine, actually. So I decided to give it a try.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. I'm missing a lot of opportunity to combine wine talks and data analytics, real-time analytics.
Just to do a parenthesis, we have a fun story. We were at the winery 2 months ago. Me, Evan, more people from Preset, and the owner. We're doing a wine tasting, and the owner comes and he's like, "So what's the occasion?" And we're like, "Oh, we work for this company. We make a BI tool, and we're just doing an offsite." And then he asks, "Oh, what BI tool?" And we're like, "Oh, we make Apache Superset and we sell it, as a SaaS." And then the owner of the winery was like, "Oh yeah, I remember Superset. I used it a lot." And we were
Nice.
like, "What?" And then
California, what you can do.
Yeah, California. And he was like, "Well, I used to work at Airbnb, where Superset started." So he's like, "I used to work at Airbnb, and then I retired and opened a winery."
Nice. Yeah, California. You never know where you can meet tech people.
And that's the dream, right? To live your life in tech and then go open the winery or something, something like that.
Yeah,
I'm actually curious.
I wanna open a gym when I'm done with this IT stuff. So
Yeah, okay. I'm actually curious since I'm new to the protein drink scene. What are the benefits of that one? What do you look for?
for me, it's just like I need to maintain certain amount of protein per day in order to sustain my active lifestyle and my training regimen. So it's sometimes when I don't have enough. Like today was a busy day. I have a bunch of meetings and I have a time to cook my meals. So I got okay. So
Hmm.
grab extra 30 grams that will help me to go from another couple hours before I go to train, and after that we'll probably eat steak or maybe cottage cheese before bed. So I haven't decided what I want at the end. So there's no particular reason except kind of like the boring stuff, filling my macros, and should be there. should meet the requirements. I'm a big boy, so I need to eat a lot of things.
All right, cool. Um, well, back to Pinot, but not the drink. I'm curious how you got involved with StarTree and Pinot in general. What's your origin story with these projects?
You wanna like a shorter story, or we ready for a longer story?
Oh well, we keep this to a ballpark half an hour, so maybe don't go too crazy. But
Yeah, exactly. So my story started actually like way before. I spent almost 4 years at a company called Confluent, where we were building best cloud offering based on Apache Kafka, and I was doing a lot of like streaming um, integrations. I was there in professional services and on the very beginning. After that, I um, transitioned to developer relations, and yeah, like in the world of Kafka, I was spent some time been away for a couple of years doing some API stuff, cloud native things, Kubernetes and things, and I got back into data world where my former boss from Confluent decided, hey, so we need someone to lead our advocacy here at StarTree and help people with Apache Pinot. So I came in very similar uh, the, from the project that has very similar origins. Both Kafka and both Pinot, they are in Apache Software Foundation. They both were originated in LinkedIn, and they were solving some different set of problems, but they both involve, you know, dealing with the massive amount of data that are arriving in incredible speeds. And naturally, Pinot has great integration with Kafka. When the data, lands in Kafka, you can query this from Pinot almost instantaneously.
Mhm. Very cool.
That's the short story.
Nice. So Beto, actually, you were hinting at a question about Pinot as of 7 years ago or so, when speaking SQL was a relatively new thing for it. I'm curious, what was it before that?
Yeah, Vic. I remember in 17, I was working at Lyft, and we were looking at like fast databases for user dashboards, and we were looking at databases that had sub-second queries. Uh, I used to joke that we wanted the queries to return in less than pi seconds. That was our metric. 3.14 seconds,
Hmm.
was kind of the cutoff. And we were looking at Pinot. That's when I built the driver. Yeah, but I think Evan's question is like, how do you know how was it before? It was before the SQL was implemented. It was just like a REST API.
Yeah, so there's a bunch of ways how you can interact with Pinot. Like there's even like SQL interface was there as a this query language. Naturally, it was designed to be that way,
Mm-hmm.
but the way how it's exposed it was different. There's REST API, there's gRPC, there's still REST API, there's still gRPC, but we are working with community to have support for something that's more standard for different ecosystems. For example,
Mm-hmm.
in a Java world, people expecting to have JDBC driver. So we do have a JDBC driver that will expose traditionally things what the JDBC driver needs to for talking to Pinot into Java API. There's a native Java API that is slightly different from JDBC. There's also the what's called Pinot DB, which is Python implementation. That's what this
Mm-hmm.
tool Alchemy actually uses underneath to talk to Pinot, like to handle all this like low level stuff, communication, networking, and all this kind of things. Get the
Right.
request, wait for response. Um, and a lot of things happened in the recent year is introduction of what we call multi-stage query engine that allows to perform like more traditionally complex things like distributed joins, for example.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember in the beginning it didn't have support for joins, um, and like Superset we support I think 50 plus different databases, and like there's a flag that is like supports join. If the database doesn't support join, we would do like two phase queries
Yeah,
ourselves,
exactly.
and it's much
One
easier
of the
when yeah. Go ahead.
No, one of the things that the people used in the past before we significantly changed the engine for this is things like Presto or Trino.
Mm-hmm.
There's also a driver that talks to API and kind of sort of performs like joins. There's many people who use this way, but right now it's natively supported. Actually, I didn't have a
Yeah.
chance to play around with Superset. How my basic idea, the way how I like to talk about those things to people when I'm explaining this, like where the Pinot will sit, and I think the combinations with the tools like Superset and Pinot, this is something that closer to users, basically delivering features, delivering data. The Pinot can be a database that your front end will be querying.
Mm-hmm.
And by front end, in this case, I can say that it's going to be like a dashboard that will be deployed to Preset or Superset. And Pinot is capable enough to handle loads if you have like hundreds and thousands of users to hitting these dashboards, or those queries need to run across like massive amounts of data. Joins, though, joins is historically this is something that I can be opinionated on the show, right? So probably.
Oh yeah.
um, when I was in school in computer science and database class, they were teaching us that, oh, there's a third normal form of the database, and we don't want to do the duplication. So that's why if you need to do this, you have a kind of like you have a one table entity, and there's another entity table, and if you have like a many to many joins, many to many kind of relationship, you have an extra table that will perform this
Mm-hmm.
type of lookups between the tables. Um, and when you start working on these systems in the real life, you realize that there's much more important things than be in third normal form or being like scientifically kind of proven and things like that. There's the things that if you can optimize the data retrieval, keep it denormalized, keep it
Yeah.
duplicates, it's fine. It will be increasing the size, it's fine, but your users will not gonna wait until your joins will be executed. So that's why I when I'm talking about those tools and how to do this, I would say that you know have a one big table that you can query. You can
Yeah.
play around with indexes. You can play around, and the Pinot is designed to be kind of like for to do query like analytic queries,
Yeah.
like
You mean like a
average
very wide
sums.
table? When you say big,
Exactly.
do you mean like
Yeah.
very wide with a lot of columns and
Exactly.
metrics?
Multiple columns.
Yeah.
There's multiple the dimensions, multiple metrics, and all these
Yeah.
kind of things. So, and in this case, perform join maybe outside. There are some tools that like stream processor. If you have a stream of data that comes through the Kafka and you have some static data and you do some sort of enrichment and land this in Pinot in a format that will be ready for analytical queries rather than kind of like, oh, can we do the joins? Yes, you can do joins. Like Pinot now can do joins, and um, the new query engine use much more intelligent algorithm than just simple
Mm-hmm.
scatter gather type of thing. There's execution plan is takes into account where the data is located, so that these certain servers would be more responsible not only to be dumb storage for the data, but also we'll be doing some sort of kind of like allocation based, where's the how we can collocate with the same key or whatnot, or how we can do joins and all those kind of things. So yeah, so in my opinion, my opinion, it's for analytical type of queries, it's pretty okay to have pre-aggregated and pre-joined tables like white tables.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. At Lyft, we also had like, you know, we didn't use Pinot. We used a similar database. We used Druid, just because it came first. But we had tables with like 600 columns, and then you load as much as possible, and try to anticipate. Right.
Another Apache project. So
Yeah.
Apache
Yeah.
Druid is also quite popular in the same category of usually analytics is something that you can run with data from yesterday, from last week, or whatever. The real-time analytics is kind of like, data needs to be relatively fresh, like you said,
Yeah.
3.14 seconds. So data arrive, we need to get the data be available to query.
Yeah. Yeah. And I wonder, like you mentioned, like you have a new engine. You know, it's much more efficient now. Like, what changed? Does Pinot uses like call site for parsing? I know a lot of Java projects are using that.
Yeah, Apache Call Site. Here we go. Another Apache project. Apache Call Site. It is a open source project that allows you to build systems that require SQL, and it's already built in parser. There's already different tools that allow you to get the query plans and all these kind of things.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we use Apache Call Site as our implementation for our query, but we have like our own kind of like dialect. It's very close to what's the standard SQL look like, but there might be some things that were changed for sake of
Yeah.
use in the analytical space. And yeah, but still, like Calcite gives you parser, gives you framework, but you still need to implement this in terms of RPC calls between the nodes. Conceptually, Pinot has three components, and Pinot, um, if we will be contrasting with some other systems, like for example ClickHouse, Pinot has segregation between storage and compute. It's not like one thing in piece. We do have the brokers that will be responsible for handling queries from the user. The when you go and configure your SQL Alchemy or your database and your Superset, what is happening is actually this driver will be talking to broker, and broker will be responsible to figuring out which server, it's another component of Apache Pinot that will be responsible for storing your data, and we're going to be extracting this data from these particular servers. And third component is the controller. Basically, it's kind of like brain of this operation that
Mm-hmm.
knows the topology, which server holds which segment. Segment, it's the unit of storage that we have in Pinot. And when topology change, like for example, we're adding more server, we can scale this independently. We can have more servers if we need to handle more storage, and our compute layer can stay the same, and vice versa. If we have intensity of the queries, we have more users trying to query this data, we can scale those components independently. So
Mm-hmm.
the yeah, so that's kind of like in a nutshell how this works. In the internal like RPC, the remote procedure calls between all these nodes would be um, abstracted using SQL. So when you're writing SQL, select first name, last name, and average age, or like probably bad example. Like you have a like average age, and you can have some sort of like geography. That's
Mm-hmm.
more look like a analytical query. So this would be parsed. We will identify the column that will be responsible for age, and Pinot is actually stores the data in columnar format. So all the data for age will be stored in one segment, and that allows to perform this type of analytical functions faster because it's known data. We don't need to do a scan like of the rows.
Right,
We have
right.
a one column in one segment, and in this case, we can send the query kind of like to this particular segment that holds this data, and we can execute this. We can execute this query or function on top of those data.
Yeah. Evan, I don't know if you have any questions about community. I'm curious about the community also, but I'll leave those questions to
I
you,
do
Evan.
have some community questions. But I also thought I should ask kind of the commercial question as well. You work with StarTree. I just tell us about StarTree in general, I suppose. But I'm wondering if there are any differentiators from open source Pinot, or what are kind of the value adds of using StarTree?
Yeah, very good question. So I've been in commercial open source companies for a while now, since 2014, and I saw how different models changed the way how different open source projects try to make some money. So one of the um, early kind of like open source project commercializing model was like building enterprise features on top of the open source thing. That well might include, but not necessarily um, true for every project, but like some advanced security, maybe integration with some sort of like internal identity providers, maybe support some encryption, all this type of jazz that maybe not necessarily required for open source enthusiasts, but if you want to run this successfully in production, you need this type of jazz. And with the rise of the cloud and kind of many things, for better or for worse, were driven by the way how the business involved, and investors and the people who were in finance, they were trying to find the models where they can have a predictable revenues. When you're dealing with enterprise sales, it's not very much predictable because it will also be depending. Oh, another option would be not have enterprise feature but have enterprise support and professional services. Typical example, Red Hat. This is how they grew their business of the, you know, they will give away everything for free. You can even just have their enterprise Linux, but if you need to support updates and all this kind of stuff, they have professional services. They can help this, but it's going to be a linear scale in terms of revenue. You make money, but you need to hire more people. You need to have an army of consultants who will go and cover many projects. And with emergence and rise of cloud, financial people saying, okay, so the cloud and subscription model looks very interesting, and we can use this model to implement our software the way that we can have a predictable revenue, because we can plan out how the subscription will grow, like people start using this. And
What's going
also,
on?
in my opinion, again, if we're talking about opinions, I think it's also fair model in the sense that you are not crippling or like providing open core stuff with your open source. Open source stays open source, and only money that you're asking is kind of like a know-how that allows efficiently run this software for someone who don't have army of people to support this, or have knowledge or desire to support. So cloud model, SaaS model, is very, very popular. And so we did this in Confluent. We migrated from enterprise version. We were selling enterprise Kafka, Confluent platform for a while, and there was lots of things available that were not available in Kafka. Control how it's called, control center was the kind of like a big UI that allows you to see everything that happens in your Kafka cluster, kind of like a geographic replication and all these kind of things. But um, not everyone wants to run this themselves. People just want to to pay for someone to run this software, and that's the model that the StarTree has. One of the cool technical challenges were made kind of like the models how this SaaS offering works is different. There's you have some APIs you can operate. That's how Amazon started at the very beginning. You have S3, you're talking to S3 through API, and they store your files. One of the early things that we decide to do in the very beginning is a relatively new model called bring your own cloud or bring your own cluster that solves some very important problem for customers: data privacy, or like data ownership. Sometimes, in a database world, people asking questions. We really don't want you as a cloud provider. We trust you, blah blah blah. There's certification. We trust. However, we really want to keep our data to ourselves. And what we want is to have your know-how, like a control plane, like managed UI, backups, maintenance of all this type of jazz. And that's what we did in StarTree Cloud. You run your servers in your environment. We host controller and making sure that we keep your cluster in good condition. All these notifications, data import. Like there's a cool tool that allows to configure ingestion of the data in a UI fashion. Pinot supports virtually, like you said, like the Superset supports virtually any database. Pinot supports virtually any source to bring the data in. You can do this from files in a different formats. You can do CSV, you can do JSON, you can do JSON lines, you can do Parquet, Abro. We can connect to, again, if you have a Kafka, Pulsar, Kinesis, you cover 95% of use cases how the people use streaming sources. And if you need to have less a sort of CDC, you usually implemented this either on Kafka or on the Pulsar. So, and if you run it in the cloud, you have something to do with like Amazon, for example. There's Kinesis there, so we have the integration with this. But it's still kind of like low level. You need to go configuring things. There needs to be kind of like jobs to run. Data manager simplifies this, and this is something that people willing to pay money because it's nice UI. I'll give you an example from my personal life, and I kid you not. So I was working on this demo, for a couple months ago. We announced the free tier for a StarTree Cloud. So essentially, you just sign up and there's no trial, there's no credit card required. You just use it. It's just capped to 0.5 terabyte for storage, and I guess like 1 million queries per day or something like that. It's very generous. Very generous.
Not bad.
And I was like, okay, so if I'm talking this, let me show the value of this like a serverless platform. So I was able to, without running anything on my laptop, without running anything anywhere, I got the free tier in Confluent Cloud. So I have a Kafka. I have a connector that generates some data. I have my data manager plugged into this Kafka, and the data arrived into Pinot. I sign up for trial and preset. Went there, get the connection string to my Pinot, and I have an end-to-end demo of I don't remember what kind of demo I use. Maybe airline data or something like that. So essentially, it's kind of like end-to-end. And this use case I saw in my previous company, how our data team were building API observability platform. And they didn't use Pinot that time. They use something else, but they are not trained to operate these things. They have a task, get the data, massage it, present this in the form, and after that, handle this to decision makers, people who will be, making decision on the performance of the APIs. For example, this data can be used to plug somewhere to implement like API monetization. So it can be implemented on top of Pinot. So you have a resting point that will expose this data to somewhere, and after that, you can start billing your customers based on the usage. So that's one of the use case. you can interrupt me if you can, if you try. I can talk about this whole day. So, but I want to be very like cautious about not carried away. So
You're doing great. I actually resonate a lot with that. I think the value of StarTree is clear for those that have run a lot of open source projects, and we find the same thing in Preset, that people tend to underestimate the actual cost impact of trying to install and manage and upgrade and secure and authenticate all of these kind of open source services. So being able to buy them off the shelf, so to speak, makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
We also have a similar customer need around kind of isolating that data, like you were mentioning. We've got our managed private cloud service as well, so you can kind of run this thing on your own through our control plane. And yeah, so this all resonates well. It sounds like we have similar audiences, which
right, exactly.
Yeah.
And when you try to get data people, they focusing on solving the problem, not the juggling of infrastructure. And if companies will be able to nail this transition from when they start POC, they start kind of like developing, exploring things to the point where, okay, so we're ready to deploy. It's actually, sounds simple. Oh, it's pretty much the same thing. But no, different sizes of data, different requirements of how many users will be accessing this data. And the people who build use case, like data person, data analyst, or like some data teams, they are really want to focus on use cases and spending time with data, explore more use cases, extracting these use cases, and ship this in the form of either API or some sort of like a dashboard, or even, God forbid, like a PDF report. It's okay, you still can do this. It's even though people want to have a nice dashboard, and rather than take a screenshot and print, rather than okay, so I will receive this PDF every day, because obviously it would be obsolete the moment that you receive this versus live dashboard that you have.
Yeah.
One kind of community related question I want to ask, since you're in a similar boat as we are with running a commercial version of an Apache project, how do you kind of approach and operate within that Apache friendly environment, like the Pinot Slack and so forth? I know there's a lot of kind of rules around vendor neutrality, and you can't just blast Slack membership with commercial emails and things like that seem like they would be an obvious win. So how do you kind of engage from sort of a marketing and outreach perspective with that Apache audience?
Yes, this is a very good question. It's simple. We separate the things. So we do have two Slacks. It's a nightmare, not a nightmare, but at least it's a minor inconvenience for internal teams, because we need to keep an eye on the both Slacks. But this decision was made like even before the company was started. So the founders and the core engineering team who started the Pinot, they wanted to have kind of like Slack when the people can ask questions. And we were clearly saying, hey, if you have a question about the StarTree and platform, we do have dedicated Slack. You can ask any type of stuff there. Also, we do have we're trying to and by we I mean developer relations team here at StarTree. We're trying to communicate the rules of engagement with Salesforce, explaining what does it mean, open source, what does it mean to be like Apache project, and how to deal with situation where you need to do exploration, people for open source. There are ways, not direct ways. So there's no like a. I can probably talk about this. So there's a great tool called Common Room. I don't know if you folks are using. There's like a few of them. Like I used the Orbit before and the Common Room before, and where we can see if the person in the community, thanks for the magic of the Common Room, we know what's his professional or her professional affiliation. So If there's a you know interest to engage, this information will be handled by special trained people. But we try not to, keep troubleshooting and all this kind of things inside there, and we're
Hmm.
not going there and saying, hey, you know what, pay us, and after that we'll help. First of all, it's not how the community works. It sends like a bad example, and we don't need to convince our leadership to do this. Leadership has strong open source background in doing with open source projects. So, for example, Kishore Gopalakrishna, he was a CCO, and he was one of the founding engineers of the Pinot in LinkedIn. And decision to open source this was kind of no brainer for engineers in LinkedIn. They kind of like to see this from perspective. You can, in your house, when no one come to your house, you can have, stuff lying around. There's like shitty code. There's like lack of documentation. But if your house is open for everyone can show up every day. You kind of have a discipline to keep things organized. You can have things tidy, and that's same with the code. The people will be watching. People will be touching this code, and also it allows to. It turns out, and the better is example here. It turns out that many big companies have a very similar use cases.
Hmm.
It's opportunity to bring collaborators if they have a like similar features. So that's how the use cases from the Uber and specifically Uber Eats, like the the restaurant manager came to be. And Uber is a big contributor to Apache Pinot, like open source Apache
Hmm.
Pinot, adding some of the things that they develop internally, and spent few years even running this internal after they donated. So they donated like geospatial index implementation. They donated implementation of upserts,
Hmm.
when we need to update the data that is already in Pinot, but inside the Pinot it's immutable.
Hmm.
But we still need to wait how we can update this data if the data arrive through the Kafka pipe or something like that. So the implementation of upsert that came in from the community where it was tested for years.
Hmm.
So the clear benefit for the project, clear benefit for community, and just collaboration that creates kind of like a good feel good type of vibe.
Cool. Bringing it back from the community to the personal, I have to ask you the question we ask all our guests. You have a very cool background with a lot of ephemera, I guess you could say. I like the Terminator poster. Um, but we always ask people, what's on your desk? What's something unusual that you might happen to have in front of you?
Yeah, so it's not directly on the desk, but it's somehow like very cool up close. Let me see.
What is that? I can't make it out yet.
Oh, that's from Horizon Zero Dawn.
Yeah, exactly. So that's the tall neck from Horizon Zero Dawn. And sometimes
Oh, wow.
when, during the COVID times, kids always at home sitting around, and my son sitting in my office, it was just like building this. I'm a huge fan of the game, and I bought
Yeah.
this for him to build. And I said, okay, I will keep this in the background. So kind of, yeah.
Very cool. Do you have a
Yeah.
extensive Lego collection otherwise? Are you a Lego maniac?
Yeah.
Very carefully.
Yes, for those who are listening and not watching, this
And
requires
also
careful.
there's the Bowser from Super Mario.
Yeah.
Nice.
In a car.
Yeah.
Come on. That's cool.
Yeah, it's in the
Yeah,
car. The thing is moving. It's like wheels are spinning. So let me put this.
Oh,
that's
nice.
awesome.
It chomps.
Yeah, I do have the Iron Man over there.
Like a whole
I
Iron
do
Man.
have a
Like the,
yeah,
the
yeah.
form.
The Lego Iron Man about you tall. Yeah, cool. Very
Do
very nice.
have Hogwarts Express. I'm just looking to another side of the room where I have like a shelf. Hogwarts Express. Yeah,
Well, if
have
you
a
have
bunch
more
of
than
like
three, you're officially a collector.
yeah. So right now he's building stuff for my son is building. I don't have the time to do this. I just finished the like home the Wi-Fi improvement project. That was much fun for me.
Nice.
Yeah, went to replace my like the Asus routers with like the enterprise grade Unify
Oh,
routers.
nice. Yeah.
Spend tons of money on this, but like enjoying every time when I run speed test or something like that. So
Yeah. Yeah.
Right on.
Yeah. I
And I guess,
have
yeah,
those
yeah.
too.
yep. And I suppose
Oh yeah,
one more product / community related question before we part ways is, do you have any kind of upcoming events or roadmap items
I do
or?
have this kind of like a
Oh,
motivational poster. Like
Oh, nice. I'm tired. It's too late. It's too hot. What does it say? Let's go.
let's go.
yeah, so kind of
But before we
yeah.
go, I was
You
wondering
asked
if
for
you had,
this, and now we have it.
yeah, nice. Um, did you have any other kind of events or roadmap items or community meetups or ways to get in touch with you that you'd like to announce to our community?
Yeah, yeah. September 16, 17, it is Austin, Texas.
Mm-hmm.
Current. It's the big event. Used to be Kafka Summit North America, but it turns out to be there's no good and big event for data. So the Confluent rebranded this and make this like a really big event. There was a Strata very good conference, very cool conference where you can have everyone who do anything with the data. It can be databases, it can be like be messaging systems, like BI tools, reporting, OLAP, OLTP, NoSQL, what have you. And with COVID, they got to the O'Reilly got to shut down their conference business, so there's no Strata. Obviously, there's a room for to fill, and the current would be there would be expo, there would be great presentations. So yeah, I will be there in September. So come to StarTree booth, talk about StarTree Cloud, Apache Pinot, yeah, so I'm looking. Hopefully, by the time when this the podcast will be out, I also will release a Apache Pinot 2.0 training course, freely available. It will be on the StarTree YouTube channel with hands-on labs. Those labs are not in the cloud; it's Docker based. You can run everything locally. So you can learn about Apache Pinot. Plus, you can also do something with it. There would be exercises about building the cluster, queries, configuring indexes, configuring the tenants because of the multi-tenant nature of certain things. Yeah, so that's gonna be very, very, very cool course. Highly recommend to check our YouTube channel for this type of data.
Okay, fantastic. I'll check it out. All right. Well, thank you for joining us today. Really appreciate you, Victor. And everybody listening, please try out Pinot, try out StarTree, try out Preset and Superset. They pair nicely, just like Pinot and whatever Pinot pairs with. The wine. Uh,
Parmesan cheese. I don't know. Like
yeah, everything pairs with
I'm
Parmesan
probably
in my book.
yeah. I mean, like maybe I'm embarrassing myself. I have no idea what the people drinking wine with. So
Anything. But yeah, thank you for joining us. It's been a pleasure, and we look forward to seeing you next time.
yeah, pleasure was mine. Thanks so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye,
My name is
everybody.
Victor Gamov, and as always, have a nice day.